As you can see, I'm strapped this one corner, so the steering wheel, even if it tries to turn over, this will stop it. Tries to turn down, well, it might let it turn down, but it won't let it do a full rotation, which is very important. Once we come over here, make sure you have a 13 socket set up right here, and then grab the little plate that you got with your kit. This is going to be really hard for you to see, but if you take a look, I put a line here and a line up here. And they touch each other, so that way I know exactly where this steering part was. Next thing to do, pull out this 13. Next, 13 mil here and 13 mil here, take those two off. Once you pull that bolt out, put it off to the side, and you should be able to pull this back. See? She pulls back. Put it down, nice and gentle. This piece, work it out with your fingers after you get those bolts out, and just put it off to the side. Just like that. Now, what needs to happen is we need to take this, and as you can see, this needs to move over there. So to do so, we have to line this up on those two existing bolts, and then we have to shave off the extra, and then we're going to mount it on there. Now I'll show you when I'm doing all this. It's just I need to go here and see how this all wants to go so we can get it just the way we want it. When doing your steering relocation, what I would do is count probably 4 threads down, leave 2 threads on here for right now. That's about the thickness of that pillow bearing. And what you're going to do is saw off at least 2 or 3 threads, so that way we can get in behind the brake booster. If not, you will not get in behind that brake booster. I'm really confused why they didn't just put a bolt that was 3 threads less. That's all it needs. Anyways, take a look at that. See how the bracket will have some exposed body when you line that up and it just gets past the brake booster. Color that black and then hit it with a die grinder. Next thing you want to do is see these 3 bolts. There's one right here on the brake booster. There's one right behind this wire pack that I have, and there's one more just to the bottom. I would loosen these up so you can wiggle your brake booster a little forward so we have a little more clearance. Will allow you to get in there with your die grinder a little bit better, and also if you do that, when you go to slip it in, it'll be a heck of a lot easier. So you see that little red area there by the bolt? Go ahead and take your die grinder like so and mulch it out. When squeezing that bearing in, all I did is you can see I loosened these brake booster. There's 4 bolts, one here, one below here, and one below here. And look at this. After you do that, you can pull it away from the firewall ever so slightly to get that piece in there. Once you get it in there, this gets tightened to 17 Newton meters. Same with the bottom one. The top notch, now remember this, you have to. Just because you can fit it in here when the brake booster's in here doesn't mean you just go and don't cut the stud. If you do not cut the stud, it'll put it into the brake booster when you tighten down your brake booster, which is something you don't want to do. So now I said 17 Newton meters here, 17 Newton meters down there. Whatever you do, only if I were you, throw a little bit of red Loctite on here and tighten the nut over the red Loctite and tighten it up by hand. Do not use a torque spec. Just put it nice and tight to a point. The reason why I say this is because I tried to torque it to spec, and of course at around 10 to 15 foot-pounds, the metal just let go. So I actually ended up JB welding for right now that post in there with a washer, and then when I tightened it down, I was actually able to get it quite tight with the JB weld because this is pinching the head of that in there. Either way, I'll post a thing on here right after this on how I did that even without the JB weld. And then after you get those 2 on, and these are torqued down, again, the big nuts that actually go onto the firewall, and you tighten those down to 17, let's slip that shaft back on, and then I'll give you the torque spec for tightening your brake booster back on and putting that shaft bolt back on. And then if you want to, when you go to put that shaft on, I would throw a little bit of grease on there just so it slides on super smooth. Well, you have this out, might as well add some marine grease to that bearing so that way she stays spinning for a nice long time. Next thing, with the right stuff, some gasket maker, go ahead, go and make a big gob all the way around this ring. And that way when we tighten this down, it seals up and then you have a gasket. So just do a circle all the way around the ring and then we'll know she's sealed. I threw a little bit of red Loctite on there. You can't really mess that one up if you tied your steering wheel because it'll slide right back in the way it came out, and there's a little notch for the bolt. So as long as the steering wheel didn't move, you'll be able to lift that up, slide that back on, especially if you grease it up a little bit, and there's a little notch for that bolt to slip through, and then tie it down to 36 foot-pounds. After that, go ahead and tighten these brake booster mounting nuts down to 18 foot-pounds.